Ambassador Vela Aron stood motionless before the vast observation window of Nexus Station, her silhouette a dark outline against the luminescent glow of Helion V below. 20,000 years of peace had shaped the stellar people into a civilization that valued stillness, contemplation, and above all, non-interference. Their history was one of quiet advancement, of technological innovation born not from conflict, but from curiosity. The Stellar Council's mantra echoed in her mind. To observe is wisdom, to interfere is folly. The neural implant at her temple pulsed with a soft blue light, signaling an incoming transmission. Vela's fingers, long and slender, brushed against the implant, accepting the call. "Ambassador!" The disembodied voice of her aide filled her consciousness. "The anomalous signal has intensified. The quantum processors have completed translation." "I'll be there momentarily," Vela replied, her voice carrying the measured cadence characteristic of stellar diplomats. As she turned from the observation window, the rings of Helion V cast prismatic patterns across the polished floor of the viewing chamber. For a civilization that had mastered space-folding technology 3 centuries ago, the stellar people maintained a reverence for natural beauty that bordered on spiritual devotion. Their cities, both terrestrial and orbital, were designed to maximize the harmony between technology and environment. The corridors of Nexus Station curved in elegant spirals, a design inspired by the golden ratio. Ambient light emanated from the walls themselves, a technology that mimicked the natural cycle of day and night. Vela's footsteps were nearly silent against the responsive flooring that absorbed impact energy and converted it to power for the station's secondary systems. In the central communication hub, a team of specialists worked with focused intensity. The normally serene atmosphere had been replaced by a palpable tension that made the air feel thicker, heavier with anticipation. Senior communications specialist Mira bowed slightly as Vela entered. "Ambassador, we've isolated the signal. It's unlike anything we've encountered before, a distress call, but with a quantum signature that suggests it was sent simultaneously across multiple dimensions." "Show me," Vela commanded, her tone gentle yet authoritative. The central holographic display flickered to life, displaying a 3-dimensional waveform that pulsed with an irregular rhythm. As the specialists activated the translation matrix, the waveform transformed into recognizable language. "We are the Takari. We are being destroyed. Help us." The message repeated in a loop, each iteration carrying subtle variations that suggested it was not an automated transmission, but a desperate, real-time plea from a species in peril. "The Takari," Vela whispered, her mind racing through the extensive diplomatic archives she had studied. "The philosopher species from the Vela Carina arm. They've maintained a policy of neutrality even stricter than our own." "The signal origin has been triangulated," Mira reported. "Takari Prime, as expected. But Ambassador, there's something else." She hesitated, her fingers manipulating the holographic controls with practiced precision. "The signal carries temporal markers. According to our analysis, it was sent 3 standard months ago." Vela felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. 3 months. For a civilization with the Takari's technological capabilities to send such a desperate message. And for that message to take 3 months to reach even the nearest listening post. "Has the council been informed?" she asked. "They are assembling as we speak. You are requested in the Grand Chamber." Vela nodded, her decision already forming. In 20,000 years of peaceful existence, the stellar people had developed sophisticated observation networks, but had always adhered to their principle of non-interference. This would be the first test of that principle in generations. The Grand Chamber of the Stellar Council was a marvel of architectural genius. 12 curved benches arranged in concentric circles, representing the 12 founding star systems of the stellar civilization. The ceiling was a perfect replica of the night sky as seen from the original homeworld. Now, lost to time, but preserved in collective memory. Council Elder Thale, his face, lined with the wisdom of 2 centuries, stood at the center of the chamber. Ambassador Vela, you have studied the Takari more extensively than any other diplomat in our service. What do you make of this distress call? Vela stepped forward, aware that her next words would shape the course of history. The Takari are a species dedicated to philosophical inquiry and peaceful existence. For them to break their self-imposed isolation and send a distress call of this magnitude suggests a catastrophe beyond our imagination. Yet our ancient laws are clear, countered Councillor Jerem, his voice carrying the distinctive resonance of those born in low-gravity environments. Non-interference has preserved our peace for 20 millennia. Would you have us abandon this principle at the first cry for help? The chamber filled with murmurs. The council members dividing along ideological lines that had rarely been tested in practical application. I would have us consider, Vela replied carefully. That non-interference was never meant to be a shield behind which we hide from moral responsibility. The Takari are not asking for technological advancement or cultural exchange. They are begging for their lives. Elder Thale raised his hand, silencing the chamber. The message is 3 months old. It is entirely possible that whatever calamity befell the Takari has already run its course. All the more reason to investigate, Vela insisted, her composure slipping slightly. If they are gone, we must understand what destroyed them. If they survive, they deserve our aid. The debate raged for hours, with positions hardening on both sides. The conservative faction, led by Councillor Jerem, argued that intervention could expose the stellar civilization to unknown threats. The progressive faction, rallying behind Vela's impassioned plea, maintained that their technological superiority gave them not just the ability, but the duty to help. As the artificial night cycle began on Nexus Station, Elder Thale called for a final vote. The result was closer than any in recent memory. 7 in favor of intervention, 5 against. It is decided, Elder Thale announced, his voice heavy with the weight of historic change. Ambassador Vela will lead a humanitarian mission to the Takari system. The expedition will be strictly limited in scope. Observation first, intervention only if absolutely necessary to prevent further loss of life. Vela bowed deeply, acknowledging both the honor and the burden placed upon her. I will select my team immediately. The Aurora is the only vessel with sufficient space-folding capacity to reach the Takari system within a reasonable time frame. The Aurora is a scientific vessel, not a warship, Councillor Jerem objected. We are not going to war, Vela countered. We are answering a call for help. The preparations moved with an urgency foreign to the typically deliberate pace of stellar operations. The Aurora, a sleek vessel designed for deep space exploration, was retrofitted with enhanced sensor arrays and additional medical facilities. Supplies were loaded, contingency plans were developed, and a crew was assembled. Major Rastor, a military tactician whose expertise had been largely theoretical in the long peace, was assigned as security chief. His weathered face and compact build spoke of a life dedicated to physical readiness, despite the rarity of actual conflict. Ambassador, he greeted Vela with a formal salute as she boarded the Aurora. My team is prepared for all contingencies, though I must express reservations about our defensive capabilities. Vela nodded, acknowledging his concern. The council was clear. This is a humanitarian mission. We go to observe and assist, not to engage in combat. With respect, Ambassador, distress calls rarely arise from peaceful situations. Rass's eyes, sharp and assessing, met hers without flinching. I've studied historical records of civilizational collapse. If the Takari are truly being destroyed, as their message states, we may be flying into active conflict. Then we will rely on your expertise to keep us safe, Vela conceded. But remember, Major, our primary objective is to help, not to fight. The rest of the key personnel presented themselves. Dr. Leon Moore, a xenobiologist specializing in crisis medicine. Engineer Tralvier, responsible for maintaining the ship's critical systems. And a dozen specialists selected for their unique skills. Dr. Leon approached Vela after the initial briefing, her youthful features betraying anxiety, poorly concealed. Ambassador, I've been reviewing the limited data we have on Takari physiology. Their cellular structure is fundamentally different from ours, quantum entangled at the molecular level. If they're suffering from some kind of epidemic or environmental catastrophe, our standard medical protocols may be useless. Then, we'll develop new protocols, Vela replied firmly. Your reputation suggests you're capable of extraordinary adaptation. Doctor, that's why you were selected. Leon nodded, though her expression remained troubled. I'll do my best, Ambassador. But I want to be clear about the limitations we face. The final hours before departure were a blur of activity. The Aurora's space-folding engines required precise calibration, particularly for a journey of such distance. The Takari system lay nearly 30,000 light-years from Helion V, a distance that would have been impossible to traverse in a meaningful time frame before the advent of space-folding technology. As the ship prepared to depart, Elder Thale made a rare personal appearance at the docking bay. Ambassador Vela, he said, his voice pitched for her ears alone. The Council's vote was close, and the dissenters remained vocal. This mission carries political risks beyond the obvious physical dangers. I understand, Vela replied, but some principles transcend politics. Indeed. The Elder's eyes, clouded with age but still sharp with intelligence, studied her face. Just remember that your first duty is to our people. If the situation proves untenable, you are authorized to withdraw. The Aurora departed with little fanfare, slipping from its docking cradle with the grace of a vessel built for elegance as well as function. As Helion 5 receded behind them, the bridge crew worked in focused silence, preparing for the first space-folding jump. All systems nominal. Engineer Trowell reported from his station. Space-folding engines at optimal temperature, quantum stabilizers engaged. Very well, Vela acknowledged. Major Rass, is your team secured for the jump? Affirmative, Ambassador. All personnel are in jump harnesses. Vela took her place in the command chair, feeling the subtle embrace of the inertial dampening field. Execute the jump sequence. The stars outside the viewports elongated into streaks of light, and then reality itself seemed to fold inward, for a subjective moment that stretched into infinity while simultaneously collapsing into an instant. The Aurora existed in multiple dimensional states. Then, with a barely perceptible shudder, the ship emerged into normal space, thousands of light-years from its starting point. Jump complete, the navigation officer announced. Position verified. We are at the first waypoint. The journey to the Takari system would require multiple jumps, each carefully calculated to avoid stellar phenomena that could disrupt the delicate space-folding process. Between jumps, the engines required time to cool and recalibrate. During one such cooling period, Major Rass approached Vela in the ship's arboretum, a space designed to provide psychological comfort through connection with living plants. Ambassador, I've been reviewing our approach vector to the Takari system. There's a dense plasma cloud along our current route. Standard procedure would be to circumnavigate, but that would require an additional jump. Vela considered the information, her fingers absently tracing the pattern of veins on a broad leaf beside her. What are the risks of passing through the cloud? Moderate to severe, Rass admitted. The plasma could interfere with our shield harmonics, potentially exposing the hull to micro-impacts. But the energy signature of the cloud suggests it's stable enough for a careful passage. And the benefit? We save approximately 12 hours of engine cooling time. Given the age of the distress call, every hour may matter. Vela nodded slowly. Prepare a detailed flight plan through the cloud. I want triple redundancy on all shield systems." As Ras turned to leave, Vela added, "And Major, I appreciate your willingness to consider unconventional options. This mission may require flexibility from all of us." The passage through the plasma cloud proved more challenging than anticipated. The Aurora's shields flared constantly as they repelled charged particles, creating a spectacular light show visible through the viewports. The ship's structural integrity held, but several secondary systems suffered damage from power surges. In the aftermath, a heated argument erupted in the engineering section between Major Ras and Engineer Trowell. "This is precisely why we follow standard protocols," Trowell insisted, his voice rising as he gestured to a damaged power relay. "We've lost 30% capacity in the medical replication systems to save 12 hours. Hours that could mean the difference between life and death for the Takari," Ras countered, his compact frame tense with restrained anger. "We can repair systems. We can't resurrect the dead." "That assumes there's anyone left to save," Trowell shot back. "For all we know, we're risking our lives for ghosts." "Enough!" Vela's quiet command cut through the argument like a blade. Neither man had noticed her entrance. "Engineer Trowell, prioritize repairs to the medical systems. Major Ras, I need a security assessment for our approach to Takari Prime. Whatever disagreements exist between you will be set aside for the duration of this mission. Is that understood?" Both men nodded stiffly, professional discipline reasserting itself. As Vela left the engineering section, Dr. Leon fell into step beside her. "Ambassador, while they were arguing, I was analyzing the data from our long-range sensors. There's something unusual about the Takari system's energy signature. It's fluctuating in patterns that don't match any natural phenomenon in our database. Could it be related to whatever threatened the Takari? Possibly. Or it could be a side effect of their defensive measures." Leon hesitated, then added, "There's another possibility. The energy patterns bear some resemblance to quantum entanglement disruption on a massive scale." "Meaning?" "Meaning that if the Takari's cellular structure is indeed quantum entangled, as our limited research suggests, then this energy pattern could represent billions of deaths, their quantum signatures unraveling simultaneously." Vela felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's environmental controls. "Keep monitoring. I want to know the moment we have visual confirmation of conditions in the Takari system." The final approach to the Takari system was conducted at reduced speed, with all sensors at maximum sensitivity. The Aurora emerged from its last space-folding jump at the outer edge of the system, in the cold reaches beyond the outermost planet. "Multiple anomalies detected," the sensor officer reported, her voice tight with controlled alarm. "The orbital paths of at least 3 planets show signs of recent disruption. And there's something surrounding Takari Prime, a field of some kind." The main view screen activated, showing a magnified image of the Takari homeworld. What should have been a vibrant blue-green planet was instead surrounded by a shifting aura of pale light, pulsing with an irregular rhythm that seemed almost biological in nature. "Energy ghosts," Dr. Leon whispered, her face ashen. "Just as I feared, their quantum signatures, torn from their physical forms but still resonating in space-time." "Scan for life signs," Vela ordered, her voice steady despite the horror unfolding before them. "Scanning," the officer replied. After a moment of tense silence, he added, "Results are inconclusive. The energy field is interfering with our biometric sensors. However, we are detecting artificial structures on the surface that appear intact." "Could survivors be sheltering in those structures?" Major Ras asked, his earlier bravado tempered by the grim reality before them. "It's possible," Dr. Leon replied. "If they found a way to shield themselves from whatever caused this phenomenon." Vela made her decision. "We'll proceed to a standard orbit and launch a detailed survey. Major Ras, Prepare a security team for possible surface deployment. Dr. Leon, I want you to continue analyzing that energy field. If those are indeed the quantum remnants of the Takari people, perhaps there's a way to determine what destroyed them. As the Aurora moved deeper into the Takari system, the ship's sensors detected additional anomalies, debris fields where satellites or space stations might once have orbited, radiation signatures consistent with weapons discharge, and most troubling of all, the faint traces of multiple ships departing the system within the last month. We weren't the first to respond, Major Rass concluded grimly during an emergency briefing in the command center. Someone else was here, recently. Responded or caused? Engineer Trowell asked, giving voice to the suspicion growing in all their minds. We can't jump to conclusions, Vela cautioned, though her own instincts aligned with their suspicions. Our priority remains finding survivors and understanding what happened here. The briefing was interrupted by an urgent communication from the bridge. Ambassador, we're detecting energy signatures consistent with powered vessels entering the system. Multiple contacts, approaching from the direction of the Cygnus arm. Vela exchanged a glance with Major Rass. How many? Initial count shows 20 vessels of varying sizes. Configuration unknown, but their energy signatures suggest advanced propulsion and weapon systems. Yellow alert, Vela ordered. Major Rass, deploy defensive screens but take no aggressive actions. We're here on a humanitarian mission, and will maintain that posture until given reason to do otherwise. The approaching vessels made no attempt to hide their presence or their trajectory. They moved with the confidence of predators who expected no resistance. They've detected us, the communications officer reported. We're receiving a transmission. On screen, Vela commanded. The view screen flickered, then resolved into the image of a being unlike any in the stellar databases. Humanoid in general form, but with skin that seemed to shift between solid and translucent. Eyes that glowed with an inner light that spoke of extensive cybernetic enhancement. When it spoke, its voice carried harmonics that triggered an instinctive sense of dread. Vessel of unknown origin, you have entered a quarantine zone established by authority of the Korath Dominion. State your purpose, or be destroyed. Vela stepped forward, her diplomatic training asserting itself despite the naked threat. I am Ambassador Vela Arin of the Stellar Civilization. We are here in response to a distress call from the Takari people. Our mission is humanitarian in nature. The being's expression remained unchanged, but a subtle shift in its posture suggested surprise. The Takari sent no distress call. They were found guilty of biological terrorism against Korath interests and have been appropriately sanctioned. Sanctioned? Vela repeated, unable to keep the disbelief from her voice. You call planetary genocide a sanction? Your ignorance of interstellar law does not excuse your trespass, the being replied coldly. The punishment for unauthorized entry into a Korath quarantine zone is destruction. You have 1 standard hour to depart this system, never to return. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Major Rass, Vela said quietly, what are our chances against 20 vessels of that technological level? Rass's expression was grim. Negligible, Ambassador. The Aurora was never designed for combat. We could perhaps damage 1 or 2 of their smaller vessels before being overwhelmed. Then, combat is not an option. Vela turned to Dr. Leon. Doctor, how quickly could you prepare a survey team to descend to the surface? We have less than an hour to gather whatever information we can. Leon's eyes widened. You're not considering compliance with their order? I'm considering all options, Vela replied carefully, aware of the listening crew. But I will not leave without understanding what happened here. The Takari deserve that much. At least, while Dr. Leon prepared her team and equipment, Vela convened a private meeting with Major Rass and Engineer Trowell in her quarters. Gentlemen, I need options. The Korath clearly perpetrated this atrocity and are now attempting to cover their tracks. I will not allow that to happen. But neither will I sacrifice this ship and crew in a futile gesture. We could send a tight beam transmission back to stellar space, Trell suggested. Alert the Council to what we found. At this distance, even with quantum entanglement enhancers, the message would take weeks to reach Helion V, Ras objected. And the Korath would detect the transmission immediately. What about the survey team? Vela asked. Could we deploy them without detection? Possibly, Ras conceded. If we launched during our approach to the far side of Takari Prime, using the planet itself to shield the launch from Korath sensors. But extraction would be problematic once the Korath realize we've defied their order to leave. Vela's decision crystallized. Here's what we'll do. Prepare 2 shuttles, one visible, one cloaked. The visible shuttle will carry myself and a minimal crew, ostensibly departing the system as ordered. The cloaked shuttle will carry Dr. Leon's survey team to the surface. The Aurora will appear to accompany my shuttle out of the system, but will actually create a sensor shadow to mask the return of the cloaked shuttle with the survey team. And then, Trell asked, and then we execute an emergency space-folding jump back to stellar space, with or without my shuttle. Vela's expression was resolute. The information must reach the Council, even if we don't. Ambassador, with respect, that's a suicide mission for the survey team, Ras protested. Once the Aurora leaves, they'll be stranded on a dead world with 20 Korath vessels in orbit. Not if we give them something more pressing to worry about, Vela countered. Engineer Trell, how difficult would it be to modify our sensor buoys to emit energy signatures, mimicking multiple ships entering the system from various vectors? Trell's eyes widened as he grasped her plan. A phantom fleet. It could work. The buoys wouldn't withstand scrutiny for long, but they might create enough confusion to cover the extraction. Major Ras, you'll command the Aurora in my absence. Your orders are to protect this ship and ensure the information reaches the Stellar Council. Is that understood? Ras's expression hardened. Understood, Ambassador. But I request permission to lead the security detail for the survey team. Denied, Vela replied firmly. Your place is on this ship. With respect, Ambassador, my place is where the greatest danger lies, and that will be on the surface of Takari Prime. Ras's voice carried the quiet certainty of a professional soldier. Engineer Trell is fully capable of commanding the Aurora for the extraction. Vela studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Very well, but the primary objective remains gathering information, not engaging the enemy. Is that clear? Crystal clear, Ambassador. The plan was executed with precision, born of desperate necessity. As the Aurora approached the far side of Dakari Prime, 2 shuttles departed its launch bay. The visible shuttle, with Ambassador Vela aboard, transmitted a formal protest, but clear compliance with the Korath order. The cloaked shuttle, carrying Dr. Leon, Major Ras, and a small team of specialists, descended silently toward the surface of the devastated world. The Korath vessels are maintaining position, Engineer Trell reported from the Aurora's command chair. They appear to be escorting Ambassador Vela's shuttle toward the system boundary. Deploy the sensor buoys as planned, ordered the tactical officer. Timing will be critical. On the surface of Takari Prime, the survey team emerged from their shuttle into a landscape of ethereal horror. The ground beneath their feet was solid, but the air itself seemed to shimmer with the pale light they had observed from orbit. Occasionally, the light would coalesce into forms that almost resembled the slender, elegant shapes of the Takari as depicted in stellar records. Energy ghosts, Dr. Leon whispered, her voice distorted by the protective field surrounding her environmental suit. Their quantum signatures, torn from their physical forms. Stay focused, Major Ras commanded, his voice grounding the team. We have less than 30 minutes before the Aurora needs to begin its extraction run. Primary objective, locate any survivors. Secondary objective, determine the weapon or method used for this attack. They moved cautiously toward the nearest intact structure, a towering spire of crystalline material that hummed with residual energy. The interior was immaculate, showing no signs of physical damage or struggle. It's as if they simply unraveled, one of the science specialists observed, scanning a room filled with what appeared to be advanced computational equipment. No blaster marks, no structural damage. "Over here!" called Dr. Leon from an adjacent chamber. "I'm detecting faint life signs." The team converged on her location, where a sealed door resisted their initial attempts at access. Major Ras deployed a molecular destabilizer, carefully calibrated to affect only the locking mechanism. As the door slid open, they were met with a sight that defied their worst expectations. Dozens of Takari, their bodies partially transparent, their movements sluggish as if moving through viscous fluid. They turned toward the stellar team with expressions of mingled hope and terror. One Takari, distinguished by elaborate markings on its translucent skin, approached Dr. Leon. It spoke in a voice that seemed to emanate not from its mouth, but from the air around it. "You received our call." "Yes," Leon replied, her medical scanner working furiously to analyze the being's condition. "We're here to help. What happened to your people?" "The Korath. Their quantum resonance weapon, designed to unravel our molecular cohesion." The Takari's form flickered, as if struggling to maintain integrity. "We are philosophers. We discovered principles of universal consciousness. Korath feared our influence." "How many survivors?" Major Ras asked, his tactical mind already calculating extraction possibilities. 5,000, in shelters throughout the city, protected by experimental phase barriers, but failing. Dr. Leon's scanner beeped urgently. "Major, their quantum signatures are degrading. Without intervention, even these survivors will completely unravel within days. Can you stabilize them?" Leon's expression was hidden behind her visor, but her voice carried determination. "Possibly. Their condition resembles quantum entanglement disruption. If we could recalibrate our medical nanobots to reinforce their molecular bonds." "Do it," Ras ordered. "How long?" "To develop the protocol? Perhaps an hour. To treat 5,000 individuals? Days." Ras checked the chronometer on his suit. "We don't have days. We barely have minutes. The Aurora will be in position for extraction in 15 standard minutes." In orbit, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. The Korath vessels had detected the sensor buoys and were moving to investigate the phantom signals. Engineer Trowell, commanding the Aurora with calm efficiency, knew their deception would not last much longer. "All hands, prepare for emergency maneuvers," he ordered. "Shuttle extraction team, stand by." On the surface, Major Ras made a decision that would alter the course of galactic history. "Dr. Leon, upload the treatment protocol to your personal data core. We're taking one Takari representative with us. This one." He indicated the marked individual who had spoken to them. "The Aurora will have to return with a full medical team once we've reported to the Council." "And if the Council refuses?" Leon asked, the question hanging heavy in the recycled air of her suit. "Then we'll find another way," Ras replied grimly. "But we're not leaving these people to die." The Takari representative, understanding their plan through some unknown means, gestured toward a crystalline device in the center of the chamber. "Take this. Contains our complete knowledge, philosophy, science, history." As Major Ras secured the device, the team's communicators crackled with an urgent transmission from the Aurora. "Surface team, be advised. Korath vessels have detected our deception. They're moving to intercept. Extraction window is closing rapidly." "Acknowledged," Ras replied. "We're on our way." To the Takari representative, he added, "Can you travel?" The being's form flickered again but stabilized with visible effort. "I will endure." The return to the shuttle was a desperate race against time. As they emerged from the building, The sky above was crisscrossed with energy beams as Korath vessels fired on the Aurora's sensor buoys. "They'll detect our shuttle the moment we break atmosphere," one of the security specialists warned. "Then we don't break atmosphere," Ras decided. "We stay low, using the city structures as cover, and rendezvous with the Aurora at the lowest possible altitude." The shuttle lifted off, its engines straining against the gravitational pull of Takari Prime as it skimmed just meters above the tallest structures of the abandoned city. In the cramped medical bay, Dr. Leon worked feverishly to stabilize their Takari passenger, whose form was becoming increasingly transparent. "Stay with us," she urged, injecting a carefully calibrated dose of experimental nanobots into what passed for the being's circulatory system. "Your people need you to survive." In orbit, the Aurora executed a series of evasive maneuvers that pushed its structural integrity to the limit. 2 Korath vessels had broken off from the main group and were in active pursuit. "Shields at 60%, reported the defensive systems officer. "Hull integrity holding, but we're taking cumulative damage." Engineer Trowell's voice remained steady. "Maintain course for the extraction point. Prepare space-folding engines for emergency jump." "Sir, space-folding this close to a planetary body exceeds safety parameters by—" "I'm aware of the risks," Trowell cut in. "Prepare the engines." On the shuttle, Major Ras received the update with grim acceptance. "Aurora is under attack. We need to alter the rendezvous point." He studied the tactical display, looking for options. "There, that canyon system. If we follow it to the ocean, we can emerge here, where these cliffs should provide some cover from orbital sensors." The pilot nodded, adjusting their course. The shuttle banked sharply, descending into the narrow confines of the canyon where ancient rivers had once flowed. The maneuver reduced their speed considerably, but also made them harder to track from orbit. "Major," the communications specialist called. "Incoming transmission from Ambassador Vela's shuttle." "Put it through," Ras ordered. Vela's voice filled the cramped cockpit, distorted by interference but still recognizable. "Major Ras, the Korath have detected your presence on the surface. They're deploying landing craft. You have minutes at most before ground forces converge on your position." "Understood. Ambassador, we've acquired critical intelligence and a Takari survivor. Proceeding to extraction point Delta." "Negative," Vela replied, her tone brooking no argument. "The Korath have positioned vessels to interdict that approach. Divert to extraction point Epsilon. I'm transmitting coordinates now." Ras studied the new coordinates with growing concern. "Ambassador, that puts us directly between 2 Korath cruisers." "Precisely. They won't expect you to fly directly into their blockade. My shuttle will create a diversion. Be ready to make a sprint for the Aurora when the opportunity presents itself." Before Ras could object, the communication ended. He turned to the pilot. "You heard the ambassador. Set course for extraction point Epsilon." As the shuttle emerged from the canyon and soared over the vast, empty ocean of Takari Prime, they caught their first glimpse of the space battle raging above. The Aurora, its sleek form scarred by weapons fire, was executing a series of complex maneuvers that kept it just beyond the effective range of the Korath vessels. Ambassador Vela's shuttle, meanwhile, was on a direct course for the largest Korath ship, broadcasting a continuous diplomatic protest on all frequencies. "She's drawing their attention," Ras realized, creating a blind spot in their sensor coverage. "It's working," the pilot confirmed. 2 Korath vessels are breaking off to intercept the ambassador's shuttle. "Take us up. Maximum acceleration," Ras ordered. "Dr. Leon, secure our passenger. This is going to get rough." The shuttle shot upward, straining against Takari Prime's gravity well. As they ascended, the Korath vessels began to register their presence, turning to bring weapons to bear. "Incoming fire," the tactical officer warned. "Evasive maneuvers," Ras commanded. "Keep us on course for the Aurora." The shuttle bucked violently as energy beams seared the space around them. A glancing hit sent warning lights flashing across the control panels. Port stabilizer damaged, the pilot reported tensely. Compensating, but control is compromised. In the medical bay, Dr. Leon fought to keep her balance while monitoring the Takari's condition. The being's form had stabilized somewhat, the nanobots beginning their work of reinforcing its quantum structure. "Hold on," she whispered, unsure if the Takari could even hear her. "We're almost there." The Aurora, seeing the shuttle's approach, executed a daring maneuver. It rolled to present its undamaged starboard shields to the Korath vessels, while extending its docking bay toward the incoming shuttle. "They're giving us cover," the pilot realized, adjusting approach vector. As they closed the final distance to the Aurora, a massive energy surge erupted from one of the Korath cruisers. The beam missed the shuttle but struck the Aurora's exposed docking bay, causing catastrophic damage. "Aurora reports docking systems destroyed," the communications specialist announced, her voice tight with controlled panic. "They're attempting to extend emergency magnetic grapples." Major Rass made a rapid assessment of their options. None were good. The shuttle, already damaged, couldn't survive another direct hit. The Aurora couldn't lower its shields further without risking destruction, and the Korath vessels were regrouping for a coordinated attack. "Tell the Aurora to prepare for immediate space-folding jump once we transfer our passenger and data," he ordered. "We'll use the emergency evacuation tubes." "Major, the tubes are designed for one-way transfer in vacuum," the tactical officer objected. "Without proper pressurization sequencing." "I'm aware of the risks," Rass interrupted. "Dr. Leon, prepare our passenger for emergency transfer. Everyone else, secure all data and prepare to abandon ship." As the shuttle approached the Aurora's position, the two vessels momentarily synchronized their movement, creating a brief window where the emergency evacuation tubes could be deployed. The process was designed for rescuing crew from a critically damaged vessel, not for deliberate transfer, but there were no alternatives. "Tube deployed and magnetically sealed," reported the Aurora's evacuation coordinator. "Beginning pressurization sequence." "No time," Rass countermanded. "Transfer the Takari now. Dr. Leon, you go with our passenger. Ensure the nanobots continue functioning." "What about you and the others?" Leon demanded. "We'll cover your retreat." Rass's expression was implacable. "The data and the survivor must reach stellar space. Everything else is secondary." Leanne wanted to argue, but knew every second increased the risk of detection and destruction. With the help of two specialists, she guided the weakened Takari into the evacuation tube. The being moved with difficulty, its partially transparent form seeming to flicker in and out of phase with normal space-time. "I'll need my medical equipment," Leon insisted, gathering critical components into a portable case. "Take only what's essential for the Takari's survival," Rass ordered. "Go, now." Leanne entered the tube after the Takari, the door sealing behind her. The airless passage between the two ships was disorienting, but the magnetic guidance system kept them on course toward the Aurora's receiving chamber. As they emerged into the Aurora's evacuation bay, alarms were sounding throughout the ship. "Multiple Korath vessels converging," announced the ship-wide communication system. "All hands prepare for emergency space-folding jump." "Wait!" Leon called to the evacuation coordinator. "Major Rass and the others, they're still on the shuttle." "Orders from Engineer Trell," the coordinator replied grimly. "We jump as soon as you and the Takari are secured." On the shuttle, Major Rass watched as the evacuation tube retracted. "All personnel, prepare for evasive action. We're going to give the Aurora the time it needs to escape." The damaged shuttle banked sharply, its engines flaring as it drove directly toward the nearest Korath vessel. The sudden, aggressive maneuver caught the Korath by surprise, forcing them to divert their attention from the Aurora. "Sir," the pilot asked, "what exactly is our plan here?" Rass's smile was thin, but genuine. "Our plan, Ensign, is to be exceedingly annoying to our Korath friends. Weapons free. Target their sensor arrays." The shuttle's limited armaments were barely a nuisance to the heavily shielded Korath vessels. But the sheer audacity of the attack created momentary confusion among the Korath commanders. On the Aurora, Engineer Trowell seized the opportunity. Space-folding engines engaged. Jump execution in 3, 2, 1. The fabric of space-time warped around the scientific vessel, reality folding in on itself as the Aurora disappeared from the Takari system. The jump, executed too close to a planetary body and without proper preparation, placed enormous strain on the ship's systems. Conduits ruptured, power relays overloaded, and structural integrity fields fluctuated dangerously. But they were away, carrying with them the living testimony of the Takari genocide and the evidence needed to expose Korath atrocities to the galaxy. In the medical bay, Dr. Leon worked tirelessly to stabilize their Takari passenger. The being's condition had worsened during the chaotic evacuation and emergency jump, its form growing increasingly transparent as its quantum structure threatened to collapse entirely. "I need more power to the nanofabricators," Leon demanded. "The nanobots are failing faster than I can replace them." "Doctor, we're operating on emergency power," the medical technician reminded her. "Engineering reports multiple systems failures throughout the ship." "Then divert power from non-essential systems. This being is the last representative of a species on the brink of extinction. I will not lose them due to power allocation problems." As the Aurora limped through space toward the nearest stellar outpost, the Takari's condition stabilized enough for limited communication. Through a combination of gesture and fragmented speech, the being conveyed critical information about the Korath attack and the quantum resonance weapon that had unraveled the molecular cohesion of an entire civilization. "The weapon targets quantum entanglement at the subatomic level," Leon explained to the ship's senior staff, gathered in the conference room despite the ongoing crisis. "It's diabolically effective against the Takari, whose cellular structure relies on quantum coherence. But the principles could be adapted to affect any form of matter." "A weapon of mass destruction unlike anything we've encountered," Engineer Trowell concluded grimly. "If the Korath deploy this against other civilizations—" "They already have," Ambassador Vela interjected. Her shuttle had managed to escape during the confusion of the Aurora's departure, executing its own emergency jump to rendezvous with the damaged scientific vessel. According to our Takari guest, the Korath have used similar weapons against at least 3 other species, who resisted their expansion. "Then we must warn the Council immediately," Trowell insisted. "Prepare a comprehensive report on everything we've learned." "A report won't be enough," Vela countered. The Council was divided on whether to answer a distress call. They'll be even more hesitant to confront an aggressive military power like the Korath Dominion. "What do you propose, Ambassador?" asked the ship's acting captain, elevated to command following the loss of Major Rass and the shuttle crew. Vela's expression was resolute. "We broadcast everything, not just to the Council, but to every civilized world within transmission range. The quantum resonance data, the testimony of our Takari survivor, the visual evidence of planetary genocide. The Korath have operated in shadows, eliminating potential opposition before it can organize. We shine a light on their atrocities." "Such a broadcast would violate dozens of diplomatic protocols," Trowell objected, though without much conviction. "The Council would view it as exceeding your authority." "Perhaps," Vela acknowledged. "But they would face the same evidence as every other civilization. And I believe that when confronted with the reality of what happened to the Takari, even the most conservative council members will recognize the necessity of action." The decision was made. Using what remained of the Aurora's communication array, they prepared a comprehensive data package. Dr. Leon contributed detailed analysis of the quantum resonance weapon's effects and the promising results of her nanobot treatment. Engineer Trowell provided technical specifications of the Korath vessels, gleaned from sensor data during their brief engagement. And at the center of it all was the testimony of the Takari survivor, whose name they learned was LR, philosopher of the seventh resonance. "My people," LR explained in strengthened, but still halting speech, "discovered principles of universal consciousness that threatened Korath control. They believe in dominion through fear. We taught connection through shared understanding." The broadcast was sent simultaneously to hundreds of worlds, using the quantum entanglement principles that the stellar civilization had mastered for communication purposes. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Civilizations that had suffered Korath aggression but lacked the means to resist individually now found common cause. Species that had hidden their technological advancements for fear of attracting unwanted attention now offered their resources to a growing coalition. And the Stellar Council, faced with incontrovertible evidence of genocide and the threat of a weapon that could theoretically be adapted to target their own quantum-based technology, voted unanimously to abandon 20,000 years of non-interference. 1 year after the Aurora's fateful mission to the Takari system, Ambassador Vela Arin stood once again before the observation window of Nexus Station. But this time, she was not alone. Beside her stood LR, now fully stabilized thanks to Dr. Leon's revolutionary nanobot therapy. Behind them, a delegation of stellar and allied representatives prepared for the signing of the Protective Covenant, a mutual defense agreement unlike anything in known galactic history. "Your people have rebuilt remarkably quickly," Vela observed, watching the shuttles arriving from the restored Takari capital below. 5,000 survivors to a functioning society in a single year. "We had help," Elar replied. Its form now solid, though, still bearing the distinctive translucence of its species. And purpose. The Korath believed they could silence our philosophy by destroying our bodies. They did not understand that ideas transcend physical form. The quantum resonance weapon had been neutralized as a threat. Dr. Leon's nanobots, originally developed to stabilize the Takari survivors, had been adapted into a defensive technology that could prevent the quantum unraveling effect. The treatment had been shared freely with all civilizations threatened by Korath expansion. The Korath Dominion itself had fragmented as subject species rose in revolt, inspired by the Takari's resilience and the unexpected intervention of the stellar people. The apostle who had threatened the Aurora was reported to have been executed by his own subordinates, unwilling to face the combined might of the newly formed alliance. "There will be a reckoning still to come," Vela acknowledged. "The Korath leadership has retreated, but not surrendered. They will adapt, develop new weapons, seek new strategies, and we will be ready," LR replied with serene confidence. "Not just with defensive technology, but with a shared philosophy that transcends individual survival. The Korath seek to dominate through fear. We will unite through hope." As delegates from 20 civilizations gathered to formalize their alliance, Vela reflected on the cost of their intervention. Major Ras and his brave crew, sacrificing themselves to ensure the Aurora's escape. The comfortable certainty of non-interference, replaced by the messy complexity of galactic politics. The peaceful isolation of the stellar civilization, now irrevocably altered by their choice to engage with the wider universe. Yet as she watched representatives from worlds that would have been enemies, or strangers, just a year before now, standing together in common purpose, she knew the price had been worth paying. An SOS had been sent. Humanity had answered. And in doing so, they had not silenced the stars, but awakened them to a new harmony, one built not on fear and domination, but on the shared determination to preserve life in all its diverse forms throughout the galaxy. The Takari philosopher LR approached the ceremonial table, its partially transparent form glimmering under the lights of Nexus Station. As it prepared to affix its quantum signature to the Protective Covenant, it paused to address the assembled delegates. "From destruction, we have created life," it said, its voice carrying the harmonic resonance characteristic of its species. "From silence, we have created symphony, and from the darkness of genocide, we have kindled a light that will illuminate the cosmos for generations to come. The covenant was signed, a new era had begun, and somewhere in the vast expanse of space, the quantum echoes of those lost in the Takari genocide seemed to pulse with renewed vigor, as if in celebration of the victory their sacrifice had ultimately achieved. Hope, it seemed, could resonate across space-time just as powerfully as fear.